Welcome back to Learn English with Stories 365. John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, two leaders who shaped America in the 1960s. But here's the big question. Who truly led America better? Was it Kennedy, the charming dreamer who aimed for the stars? Or Nixon, the clever strategist who played the long game? Today, we're diving into their stories to find out. Let's start with some wild questions to get you thinking. What if Kennedy never pushed America to reach the moon? Would Nixon's trip to China still feel so huge? And who really saved the world from nuclear war? Was it the hero with a dazzling smile, or the survivor with a sharp mind? Now, here's something crazy about these guys. Did you know Kennedy had a secret illness called Addison's disease? He was in pain every day but hid it to look strong. And Nixon? Believe it or not, he could play the piano and accordion. Once, he even played a song called Home on the Range at a press conference. Both men faced scary moments in the Cold War, but they handled them so differently. Kennedy flashed a bright smile under pressure, while Nixon worked quietly, almost like a shadow. Let's hear what they believed in. Kennedy once said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." Powerful, right? Nixon had his own vision. He said, "The greatest honor history can bestow is the title of peacemaker." So, what's it going to be? Charisma or cunning? By the end of this video, you'll decide who wins your vote. Get ready for an epic journey through history, with stories, surprises, and some English lessons along the way. Let's dive in! Part 1. The Highlight Reel. All right, let's jump into the action with the highlight reel, where we shine a light on the biggest moments of John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon's time as leaders. These are the stories that made history, the ones people still talk about today. Imagine this like a movie trailer, packed with drama and excitement, showing you why these two men mattered so much. We're going to explore what they did, what they taught the world, and why their choices changed everything. And don't worry, we'll keep it simple and fun so you can follow along and learn some English too. First up, let's talk about Kennedy's greatest hits. Picture a young president standing tall, his voice strong, telling America to dream big. One of his boldest moves was promising to send humans to the moon. Can you believe it? Back then, space felt like a faraway fairy tale, but Kennedy said, "We choose to go to the moon." And guess what? America did it. That vision didn't just land astronauts on the lunar surface. It brought people together, made them believe anything was possible. It was like he handed the whole country a ticket to the stars. Then there's the Peace Corps, another one of his brilliant ideas. He created this program to send Americans around the world to help others, building schools, teaching kids, sharing hope. It showed the world America cared about more than just power. But Kennedy's biggest test came during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Imagine this. The world was on the edge of nuclear war. Soviet missiles were in Cuba, pointed at America. Everyone was scared, but Kennedy stayed calm. He talked to the Soviet leader, made tough choices, and avoided disaster. The world breathed a sigh of relief. What's the lesson here? Kennedy showed us that bold dreams can unite people. When you aim high and inspire others, you create something bigger than yourself. His ideas made hearts race and eyes look up. Now, let's switch gears to Nixon's big moments. If Kennedy was a dreamer, Nixon was a doer, a man who thought 10 steps ahead. One of his greatest achievements was opening the door to China. Back then, America and China barely talked. It was like they lived on different planets. Nixon changed that. He flew to China, shook hands with their leader, and started a friendship that reshaped the world. Trade, ideas, and peace grew because of that trip. It was a move no one saw coming, and it showed Nixon's knack for thinking big in a quiet way. Another win? He created the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. This group works to keep America's air clean, water safe, and land healthy. Even today, the EPA fights for the planet. Nixon cared about the future, even if he didn't always get the credit. Then there's the Vietnam War. This one's tricky. The war was a mess when Nixon took over, dividing America, costing lives. Nixon wanted it to end, but his way wasn't simple. He made secret plans, even bombed other countries to push for peace. Eventually, he brought American soldiers home, but not everyone cheered. Some called it messy, others called it smart. What can we learn from Nixon? He showed that pragmatism, making practical choices, even tough ones, can create change that lasts. He wasn't flashy, but he got results. So, what do these highlights tell us? Kennedy made people feel alive with hope. He painted pictures of a better world, whether it was landing on the moon or standing up to danger. Nixon, on the other hand, was like a chess player. He moved pieces carefully, planning for wins that didn't always make headlines right away. Both men faced a world full of fear, war, spies, and uncertainty, but they tackled it in their own way. Kennedy's style was like a bright light, pulling everyone toward him. Nixon's was more like a map, guiding the country through twists and turns. Think about it. Kennedy said, "Reach for the stars," and people cheered. Nixon said, "Play the long game," and the world listened, even if they didn't always love him for it. Let's sprinkle in some English to make this stick. Words like charisma describe Kennedy's charm, his ability to make you believe in him just by smiling. Diplomacy was Nixon's strength, talking to others to solve problems without fighting. Both men left a legacy, which means the mark they made on history. Kennedy's was full of idealism, dreaming of what could be. Nixon's was tied to crisis, handling tough moments with a cool head. Try these phrases out. Kennedy wanted us to reach for the stars, to aim high and never give up. Nixon taught us to play the long game, to be patient for big wins. Say them with me. Feel the difference in their vibes. As we wrap up this part, picture Kennedy and Nixon standing side by side. One's got a dazzling grin, ready to inspire a crowd. The other's got a sharp mind, already planning his next move. They both became giants. But how? How did a sickly rich kid like Kennedy and a poor piano player like Nixon rise so high? That's what's coming next. We're going to dig into their lives, uncover their secrets, and see what made them tick. Get ready for more surprises. It's going to be a wild ride. Part 2. Kennedy's background. Now, let's step back in time to meet the man behind the myth. John F. Kennedy, the president who captured hearts with his charm and courage. His story is like something out of a movie, a mix of privilege, pain, and incredible bravery. How did a kid born into wealth become a hero who inspired the world? How did he turn his struggles into strength? Get ready, because we're about to uncover the life of JFK, from his childhood to his tragic end. And we'll learn some English along the way. This is a tale of a man who faced danger, wrote his own destiny, and left us dreaming of what could have been. John F. Kennedy was born in 1917 in Massachusetts, into a family that seemed to have it all. His father was a rich businessman, and his mother came from a powerful political family. Growing up, Kennedy, everyone called him Jack, had fancy houses, private schools, and summers by the sea. Sounds like a perfect life, right? But it wasn't so simple. Jack was sick a lot as a kid. He caught fevers, had stomach problems, and later found out he had Addison's disease, a serious illness that made him tired and weak. His back hurt so bad he could barely stand sometimes. Can you imagine being in pain every day but still smiling for the world? That's what Jack did. He didn't let his body stop him. Instead, he learned to push through, to keep going no matter what. That strength, turning pain into power, shaped who he became. It's like he decided early on that nothing would hold him back. When World War II started, Jack could have stayed safe at home. His family had connections, and his health wasn't great. But he wanted to serve. He joined the Navy and ended up commanding a small boat called PT-109 in the Pacific. One night, disaster struck. A Japanese ship smashed into his boat, splitting it in half. The crew was stranded in the ocean, miles from help. Most people would have given up, but not Jack. He swam for hours, towing an injured sailor by holding a strap in his teeth. Can you picture that? Swimming in the dark, exhausted, but refusing to let his men die. He led them to a tiny island, then swam again to find help. Days later, they were rescued. That bravery made him a war hero, and people started to see him as more than just a rich kid. He showed perseverance, the kind of grit that keeps you fighting even when things look hopeless. After the war, Jack's life took another turn. He went into politics, but he also became a writer. He wrote a book called Profiles in Courage, about brave leaders who stood up for what was right, even when it was hard. Guess what? It won a huge prize called the Pulitzer. That's a big deal for anyone, let alone a young guy still building his name. Writing that book showed Jack's love for ideas and words. He had a gift for rhetoric, using language to inspire people. He'd sit in a rocking chair to ease his back pain and scribble his speeches, pouring his heart into every line. Did you know he wrote most of his own speeches? That's rare for a president. Those words, like, "Ask not what your country can do for you," came straight from him, rocking back and forth, turning pain into poetry. It was like his style and substance came together to create magic. Jack's charm helped him build coalitions, groups of people working together. As a senator, then as president, he knew how to bring others along, whether it was for civil rights or facing the Soviet Union. But his life wasn't all smooth. He faced pressure, critics, and the constant fear of war. Still, he kept that smile, that spark that made people believe in him. Tragically, his story ended too soon. On November 22, 1963, he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, shot while riding in a car. The world stopped. People cried in the streets, not just in America, but everywhere. He was only 46, and his death felt like losing a dream. That moment turned him into more than a man. He became a symbol of hope cut short. Let's talk English for a second. Words like privilege describe Jack's wealthy start, having advantages others don't. Perseverance was his ability to keep going, no matter the pain. Rhetoric means his skill with words, making speeches that moved hearts. He built coalitions to get things done, and his assassination shocked the world. Try these phrases. Turning pain into power captures how he used his struggles to grow stronger. Style meets substance shows how his charm and ideas work together. Say them out loud. Feel how they fit his life. Here's a fun fact to blow your mind. Did you know Kennedy wrote his speeches in a rocking chair because it helped his back? Picture him there, pen in hand, rocking gently, crafting words that changed history. That image sticks with you, doesn't it? It's like he was always moving forward, even when he was sitting still. So, what do we take from Kennedy's background? He wasn't just a rich kid handed a golden ticket. He fought illness, risked his life in war, and worked hard to inspire others. His story shows that even with advantages, you need courage to make a difference. Next, we'll flip the coin and meet Nixon, a man who started with nothing but clawed his way to the top. How did a poor piano player match Kennedy's shine? That's coming up, and it's going to be just as wild. Part 3. Nixon's background. Now, let's turn the page to a different kind of story. One that's gritty, surprising, and full of twists. We're diving into the life of Richard Nixon, a man who rose from nothing to stand on the world's biggest stage. Unlike Kennedy, Nixon didn't start with wealth or charm, but he had a fire inside him that wouldn't quit. How did a boy from a small town become a president who reshaped history? How did he survive scandals and still leave his mark? Get ready for a tale of hard work, clever moves, and a few dark shadows. We'll uncover Nixon's past and learn some English along the way. So let's jump in with both feet. Richard Nixon was born in 1913 in a tiny house in Yorba Linda, California. His family wasn't rich, far from it. His dad ran a small store, and his mom worked hard to keep the family going. They grew lemons and oranges to make ends meet, and young Richard, everyone called him Dick, helped out. Life was tough. The Nixons didn't have fancy clothes or big vacations. Dick shared a bedroom with his brothers, and sometimes there wasn't enough food. 2 of his brothers got sick and died when he was young, which hit him hard. Can you imagine growing up with that kind of loss? It taught him early on that life isn't fair, but it also gave him humility, a sense that he was no better than anyone else. That feeling stuck with him, even when he reached the White House. He never forgot where he came from, and it shaped how he saw the world. As a kid, Dick was quiet but driven. He loved school and soaked up books like a sponge. He wasn't the guy cracking jokes or winning popularity contests, but he worked harder than anyone. He got up before dawn to help at the store, then studied late into the night. That hustle paid off. He earned a scholarship to a great college, Whittier, and later went to law school. But Nixon's big break came when he entered politics. He ran for Congress in 1946 and won, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. Early on, he got tangled in a mess called the Checkers speech scandal. People thought he took money he shouldn't have, and it nearly ended his career. So, Nixon went on TV, live, no script, and talked straight to America. He said he was honest, admitted he wasn't perfect, and even mentioned his dog, Checkers, a gift he refused to give back. It was a risky move, but it worked. People loved his honesty, and he survived. That moment showed his resilience. his ability to bounce back when things got tough. It was like he rose from the ashes, stronger than before. Nixon's career took off after that. He became vice president under Eisenhower, then ran for president against Kennedy in 1960. He lost, and it stung. Most people would have quit, but not Nixon. He ran again in 1968 and won. What made him keep going? Some say it was his win at all costs mindset. Nixon was a fighter, but that fight came with a shadow. He could be ruthless, bending rules to get ahead. He didn't trust easily, and some say he had paranoia, a fear that others were out to get him. That fear led to secret moves, like recording conversations in the White House. Did you know he sent handwritten thank-you notes to his staff, but recorded them behind their backs? It's like he was two people, one kind, one suspicious. Those recordings would haunt him later, but we'll get to that in another part. When Nixon became president, he brought his past with him. He remembered the struggles of ordinary people, and that shaped his choices. He worked for peace, like his trip to China, because he knew war hurt families like his own. But his hard childhood also made him guarded. He didn't let many people close, and that loneliness showed in how he led. Still, his story is one of controversy and comeback. In 1974, he faced his biggest scandal, Watergate. It forced him to resign, the only president ever to do so. Leaving the White House was his lowest moment, but even then, he didn't vanish. He wrote books, gave advice, and slowly rebuilt his name. That's Nixon, always climbing back, no matter how far he fell. Let's pause for some English. Words like humility describe Nixon's simple roots, knowing he wasn't above others. Controversy was part of his life, like the scandals that tested him. Resilience means how he kept standing after every hit. Paranoia captures his distrust, and resignation marks his exit from power. Try these phrases. Rising from the ashes is how he survived tough times. Win at all costs shows his drive to succeed, no matter what. Say them with me. Feel the weight of his story. Here's a wild fact to make you smile. Did you know Nixon loved music? He played piano and accordion, and once performed at a press conference. Picture him, serious suit and all, tapping out a tune. It's a reminder he wasn't just a politician. He was human, with quirks and dreams. So, what does Nixon's background tell us? He wasn't born with a silver spoon. He fought for every step, from a dusty farm to the White House. His life shows that hard work and grit can take you far, but they can also bring shadows. Nixon's story is a roller coaster. One minute you cheer for him, the next you wonder what he'll do next. Coming up, we'll put him head to head with Kennedy. How did their styles clash? That's next, and it's going to spark some fireworks. Part 4. Leadership Style. Now it's time to put Kennedy and Nixon side by side and see how they stack up. We're zooming in on the first big comparison. Their leadership styles. Picture two captains steering the same ship, America, through stormy seas. One flashes a bright smile and calls everyone to work together. The other plots the course alone, sharp eyes scanning for danger. How did Kennedy's charm match up against Nixon's strategy? What made their approaches so different? And why does it matter? Let's dive into this showdown, unpack their styles, and learn some English along the way. Get ready. It's going to be a fascinating clash. John F. Kennedy led like a star in a movie. He had charisma, that special spark that makes people stop and listen. When he spoke, you couldn't look away. His voice was warm, his smile was wide, and his words felt like they were meant just for you. He made big ideas, like going to the moon, sound not only possible but exciting. Kennedy believed in leading with a team. He surrounded himself with smart advisors, his brother Bobby, his speechwriters, his friends, and listened to them. He wasn't afraid to share the spotlight. During meetings, he'd ask questions, crack jokes, and make everyone feel like their ideas mattered. That openness created a sense of optimism, like anything could happen if you believed in it. People loved him for it, not just in America, but across the world. He was the guy you wanted at a party, rallying everyone to dance. Kennedy's secret weapon was television. Back then, TV was new, and he mastered it. In 1960, he faced Nixon in the first-ever televised debate. Nixon looked tired and stiff, but Kennedy, he glowed. He wore a sharp suit, looked straight at the camera, and spoke with confidence. Millions watched, and they fell for him. That debate showed how Kennedy used his image to lead. He wasn't just selling policies, he was selling hope. His style was transparent, or at least it seemed that way. He let people see his energy, his youth, his dreams. Even when things got tough, like during the Cold War, he kept that cool, calm vibe. It was like he was saying, "Don't worry, we've got this." His leadership felt like a bright light, pulling everyone toward a better future. Now let's switch to Richard Nixon. If Kennedy was a light, Nixon was a shadow, quiet, careful, and always thinking ahead. Nixon didn't have Kennedy's natural charm. He wasn't the guy you'd pick to light up a room. Instead, he led with strategy. He was like a chess player, planning every move, watching for traps. Nixon didn't trust easily. He'd seen too many betrayals in politics, and it made him cautious. He worked alone a lot, keeping his plans close to his chest. Where Kennedy loved big meetings with lots of voices, Nixon preferred small talks, or even thinking by himself. That made him seem distant sometimes, like he was hiding something. Some called it distrust, others called it focus. Either way, it shaped how he led. Nixon's strength was his brain. He studied problems deeply, whether it was China or the Vietnam War, and came up with bold, surprising solutions. Take his trip to China. Most leaders wouldn't have dared, but Nixon saw a chance to change the world and took it. He didn't need applause to feel good about his choices. That's what made him different. He wasn't chasing love. He was chasing results. But that style came with a cost. Nixon could slip into manipulation, bending truth or rules to win. He recorded conversations, kept secret plans, and sometimes pushed people away. His team was loyal, but loyalty to Nixon meant following his lead, not questioning it. His style wasn't warm or open, it was sharp, like a knife cutting through chaos. So, what happens when you compare these two? Kennedy led with his heart out front. He wanted people to feel inspired, to join him in building something great. His optimism was contagious. You couldn't help but believe in his dreams. Nixon led with his head. He wanted control, to steer the country through danger without anyone noticing the gears turning. Kennedy's team felt like a family. Nixon's felt like a fortress. Kennedy used TV to shine. Nixon used quiet deals to win. One led with a smile, the other with a snarl. Not angry, but intense, like he was always ready for a fight. Both cared about America, but their styles showed different truths. Kennedy believed people could be trusted to follow a good cause. Nixon believed you had to outsmart the world to survive. Let's grab some English to make this stick. Optimism describes Kennedy's sunny hope, seeing the best in every moment. Transparency was how he seemed open, letting people in. Nixon leaned on manipulation, sometimes twisting things to get his way. Loyalty mattered to both, but Kennedy shared it freely, while Nixon demanded it. Distrust defined Nixon's caution. He didn't let many close. Try these phrases. Leading with light versus leading with shadows captures their difference. Kennedy's glow against Nixon's quiet moves. A smile or a snarl asks who you'd follow, the charmer or the planner. Say them out loud. Feel how they paint these men. Picture this for a second. Kennedy steps onto a stage, lights flashing, crowd cheering, his grin saying, "Let's do this together." Nixon stands in a dim office, papers piled high, his eyes scanning a map, whispering, "I've got a plan." Both led, but in ways that felt worlds apart. Kennedy's style made you want to dream big. Nixon's made you trust he'd handle the details, even if you didn't see how. Coming up, we'll look at how they faced crises, moments when the world held its breath. Did Kennedy's charm or Nixon's cunning save the day? That's next, and it's going to be intense. Part 5, Handling Crises. All right, we've seen how Kennedy and Nixon led in their own unique ways. But now it's time to test them under pressure. We're diving into our second big comparison: how they handled crises. Imagine the world on the edge, hearts pounding, decisions that could mean peace or disaster. Kennedy faced a moment that nearly sparked a nuclear war. Nixon wrestled with a messy conflict that tore America apart. How did they steer through danger? Did charisma or cunning make the difference? Let's unpack these nail-biting stories, see what they teach us, and pick up some English along the way. Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride. Let's start with John F. Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. Picture this. America and the Soviet Union are locked in a tense standoff called the Cold War. Suddenly, U.S. spies discover Soviet missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida. These aren't ordinary weapons. They're nuclear, capable of wiping out entire cities. If they're launched, millions could die, and the world might burn. The news hits Kennedy like a punch. He's only 45, leading a nation staring at disaster. What does he do? He stays cool under fire. On TV, he speaks to the American people, his voice steady, explaining the danger without causing panic. He tells the Soviets to remove the missiles and sets up a naval blockade around Cuba to stop more weapons from arriving. It's a bold move, like drawing a line in the sand. Behind closed doors, though, it's a different story. Kennedy's scared. He knows one wrong step could end everything. He gathers his advisors, listens to their arguments, and weighs every option. Some want to bomb Cuba right away, but Kennedy says no. He doesn't want war. Instead, he talks secretly with the Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev. They send messages back and forth, feeling out a deal. For 13 days, the world holds its breath. Finally, the Soviets agree to take the missiles away, and Kennedy promises not to invade Cuba. He also makes a secret deal to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey later. Crisis over. People cheer, not just because war was avoided, but because Kennedy made it look possible to stay strong and smart at the same time. His style, public calm, private panic, showed he could handle the worst moments with grace. Now let's shift to Richard Nixon and the Vietnam War. When Nixon becomes president in 1969, Vietnam is a mess. It's a war thousands of miles away, pitting U.S. troops against communist forces. But it's not just a fight abroad. It's splitting America in two. Young people protest in the streets, families lose sons, and the country feels like it's breaking. Nixon inherits this chaos, and he's determined to end it. But his way isn't loud or flashy. He calls it Vietnamization, letting South Vietnam take over the fight while pulling U.S. soldiers home. Sounds simple, right? It's not. The war's a puzzle with no easy answer, and Nixon knows it. Here's where it gets tricky. Nixon wants peace, but he also wants to win, or at least not lose. So, he makes secret moves. He orders bombings in Cambodia and Laos, countries next to Vietnam, to cut off enemy supplies. He doesn't tell the public at first, hoping to keep the pressure on without more protests. When people find out, they're furious. They call it escalation, making the war bigger instead of smaller. Nixon pushes forward, believing it's the only way. By 1973, he signs a peace deal, and U.S. troops leave Vietnam. The war ends for America, but South Vietnam falls to communists 2 years later. Some call Nixon a hero for stopping the bleeding. Others say his secret plans cost too many lives. Either way, he ended a war while starting controversies. His crisis style was quiet, calculated, and sometimes slippery. So, how do these two stack up? Kennedy's crisis was a tightrope walk, 13 days where one slip could have meant the end. He used brinkmanship, pushing to the edge of war without falling over. He stayed public, talking to the world, but flexible behind the scenes, ready to compromise. Nixon's crisis was a marathon, a long grind that tested patience. He aimed to de-escalate, pulling America out, but his secret moves kept the war in a stalemate for years. Kennedy's strength was clarity. Everyone knew where he stood. Nixon's was persistence. He kept going, even when trust faded. Both faced impossible choices, but Kennedy's felt like a sprint to safety. Nixon's like a chess game with no perfect move. Let's grab some English to lock this in. Brinkmanship describes Kennedy's daring dance with danger, getting close to war, but stepping back. Escalation fits Nixon's hidden bombings, making things bigger before they shrank. Stalemate captures Vietnam's stuck feeling, neither side winning for years. De-escalate was Nixon's goal, easing America out. Legacy ties to both, how their choices shaped history. Try these phrases. Cool under fire is Kennedy, calm when it counted. Ending wars, starting controversies is Nixon, solving one problem but sparking others. Say them aloud. Feel their weight. Picture Kennedy on TV, eyes steady, telling the world, "We will stand firm." Now see Nixon in a quiet room, mapping out moves no one else sees. One's open, one's hidden, one's quick, one's long. Both saved lives. Both took risks. Next, we'll explore their legacies. What they left behind. Did Kennedy's dreams or Nixon's deals last longer? That's coming, and it's going to hit hard. Part 6. Legacy. We've watched Kennedy and Nixon face fire and come through, but now it's time to look at what they left behind. Welcome to our third big comparison. Their legacies. A legacy is like a footprint in history. What people remember long after you're gone. Kennedy's story ended too soon, but his name still shines bright. Nixon's journey was longer, full of highs and lows, and his mark is just as deep, though more complicated. How did these two shape the world? Whose impact feels stronger today? Let's dig into their legacies, unpack the dreams and deals that define them, and learn some English along the way. Get ready! This is where the story gets big. Let's start with John F. Kennedy. When he was assassinated in 1963, the world froze. He was only 46, cut down in his prime, and that moment turned him into something more than a president. He became a martyr, a hero who died for a cause. What was that cause? Progress. Kennedy stood for a better America, one where people could dream big. His push for the moon landing wasn't just about space. It was about showing what humans could do when they worked together. That dream came true in 1969, 6 years after his death, when astronauts walked on the lunar surface. Every time we look at the moon, we see a piece of Kennedy's vision. It's like he planted a flag up there, not just for America, but for hope. Kennedy's legacy also lives in the Peace Corps. He started this program to send Americans abroad to help others, teaching, building, sharing kindness. Today, the Peace Corps is still going, with thousands of volunteers carrying his idea forward. It's proof his heart was global, not just local. Then there's civil rights. Kennedy spoke up for equality, pushing laws to end unfair treatment of Black Americans. He didn't live to see those laws pass, but his words lit a spark. After his death, President Johnson carried the torch, passing the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Kennedy's voice was part of that victory, even from beyond. His legacy feels like a promise. What could have been if he'd had more time? People still quote him, still feel his energy. He's the symbol of lost potential, the leader who made us believe in tomorrow. Now, let's turn to Richard Nixon. His legacy is a roller coaster, full of highs that changed the world and lows that left scars. Nixon's biggest win was opening the door to China in 1972. Before him, America and China were like strangers, barely speaking. He flew to Beijing, met their leader, and started a friendship that reshaped trade, peace, and power. Today, when we buy something made in China or see global deals. We're living in a world Nixon helped build. That trip wasn't just a handshake, it was a bridge. Another piece of his legacy is the environment. Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency in 1970, a group that fights for clean air, safe water, and healthy land. Every time we recycle or hear about climate action, Nixon's work is there, quietly making life better. He saw the future and acted, even if he didn't shout about it. But Nixon's legacy has a shadow, and its name is Watergate. In 1972, his team broke into a rival's office to steal secrets, sparking a scandal that rocked America. When it came out, Nixon denied it at first, but secret tapes proved he was involved. He resigned in 1974, the only president ever to quit. That word, resignation, hangs heavy. Watergate didn't just end his career. It changed how people trust leaders. Even today, when we hear about political scandals, someone mentions Nixon. It's like a stain that won't wash out. Yet, here's the twist. Nixon didn't vanish. He wrote books, gave advice, and slowly rebuilt his name. Some see him as a villain, others as a genius who fell. His legacy is environmentalism and global peace, but also a warning about power and pride. So, how do these legacies compare? Kennedy's is like a shooting star, bright, brief, and unforgettable. He left ideas that inspire. Reach for the stars, help others, stand for what's right. His death made him a legend, but it also froze him in time. We'll never know what else he could have done. Nixon's legacy is more like a river, winding, sometimes muddy, but carving a deep path. He built systems like the EPA and opened doors like China that still shape our lives. But Watergate drags him down, a fall from grace that colors everything. Kennedy's legacy lifts you up, making you dream of what's possible. Nixon's grounds you, showing what's real, good and bad. Let's grab some English to make this stick. Martyr describes Kennedy, a hero lost for his cause. Scandal fits Nixon's Watergate, a mistake that shook trust. Environmentalism is Nixon's gift, caring for the planet. Impeachment loomed over Nixon, though he left before it hit. Redemption captures his comeback, trying to rise again. Try these phrases. What could have been is Kennedy's promise, cut short. A fall from grace is Nixon's tumble from power. Say them out loud. Feel their stories. Picture Kennedy's face on a poster, young and smiling, forever a symbol. Now see Nixon, older, waving goodbye as he leaves the White House, yet never giving up. One's a dream, one's a deal. Both changed the world, but in ways that pull us different directions. Next, we'll slow down and focus on learning English with their words. How did their speeches teach us to speak and think? That's coming, and it's going to be fun. Part 7. English Learning Focus. We've explored the epic lives and legacies of Kennedy and Nixon. But now, let's slow down and make this story work for you. It's time for our English Learning Focus, where we take their words, ideas, and stories to help you speak better and understand more. Imagine sitting with Kennedy's soaring speeches or Nixon's careful plans, picking out patterns that make English click. We're going to practice some key language, repeat important phrases, and have fun with sentences you can use yourself. This part is all about building your skills, so let's dive in with energy and make learning feel like an adventure. First, let's talk about the past tense, because history is all about what happened. Kennedy and Nixon lived their lives in the past, and we describe them with verbs like inspired, resigned, or created. For example, we can say, Kennedy inspired millions with his moon speech. That word inspired tells us it's done, finished. Or try this. Nixon resigned in 1974 after Watergate. See how resigned puts it in the past? These verbs are everywhere in their stories. Kennedy spoke, Nixon planned, they both changed the world. To practice, let's use their quotes. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." Say it slowly. Kennedy asked us to think about our country. Now Nixon. The greatest honor history can bestow is the title of peacemaker. Try this. Nixon wanted to be a peacemaker. Repeat these sentences. Feel how the past tense locks the action in time. Next, let's play with comparative adjectives, because comparing Kennedy and Nixon is what this video's about. These words help us say one thing is bigger, better, or different than another. For example, Kennedy was bolder than Nixon. That word bolder shows Kennedy took bigger risks, like aiming for the moon. Or how about Nixon was more strategic than Kennedy? Here, more strategic means Nixon planned carefully, like with China. Let's try another. Kennedy's speeches were shorter, but Nixon's ideas were deeper. See how shorter and deeper compare them? To make it fun, let's build sentences together. Say this. Kennedy was braver, but Nixon was smarter. Now switch it. Nixon was tougher, but Kennedy was kinder. Repeat these to feel the rhythm. Comparatives make your English pop. Here's a challenge to spark your brain. Let's do a fill-in-the-blank quiz with a pattern. If Kennedy, then Nixon. You pick the words. For example, if Kennedy dreamed big, then Nixon worked hard. Try another. If Kennedy inspired hope, then Nixon solved problems. Say these out loud and make up your own. It's like building a bridge between their stories. This pattern helps you think about cause and effect while practicing past tense and comparisons. To wrap this up, let's act like we're on a podcast, repeating their quotes slowly and clearly. Here's Kennedy again. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Say it with me, word by word, like you're speaking to the world. Now, Nixon, the greatest honor history can bestow is the title of peacemaker. Repeat it. Feel its weight. These words aren't just history. They're your chance to practice clear, confident English. Coming up, we'll tie it all together and ask the big question: who's your president? Get ready to pick a side and share your thoughts. It's going to be a blast. Brief conclusion. All right, let's bring this epic journey to a close with a bang. We've traveled through the lives, leadership, and legacies of John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, two men who shaped America in ways we still feel today. Now it's time to sum it all up and ask the big question: who truly led America better? Was it Kennedy, the dreamer who made us reach for the stars, or Nixon, the deal-maker who played the long game? This is your moment to decide, so let's wrap this up with some final thoughts, a fun challenge, and a call to join the conversation. Looking back, Kennedy gave us a vision. He stood tall and said, "Let's go to the moon." And suddenly, the impossible felt real. His charisma lit up the world, from the Peace Corps to the Cuban Missile Crisis, where he kept us safe with a steady hand. He was like a spark, igniting hope and progress, even if his time was cut short. His legacy is a question. What could have been? On the other side, Nixon gave us results. He opened China, built the EPA, and ended a painful war, even if his road was rocky. Watergate scarred him, but his grit pulled him through. He was like a builder, laying bricks for a stronger future, flaws and all. Kennedy made us dream. Nixon made deals. Both changed history, but they pulled us in different directions, one toward the sky, the other through the shadows. So, who's your president? If you love Kennedy's bold heart, his call to ask not what your country can do for you, then he might be your pick. If Nixon's quiet wins, like shaking hands with China or fighting for clean air, speak to you, maybe he's your guy. There's no wrong answer. It's about what moves you. Think about this. Which leader would you want in a crisis today? Kennedy, with his cool head and bright words? Or Nixon, with his sharp plans and tough choices? Picture a modern problem, like climate change or global tension. Could Kennedy's idealism unite us to fix it? Could Nixon's realism cut through the noise? Your choice says a lot about what you value. Here's where you come in. Smash that like button if you're Team JFK. Let's see those hearts for his starry-eyed courage. Hit love if you're Team Nixon, cheering for his clever moves. And don't stop there. Subscribe to Learn English with Stories 365 for more epic battles like this one. We've got stories lined up that'll keep you hooked. From history's giants to English lessons that stick. Drop a comment below and tell us, who'd you pick and why? Maybe you think Kennedy's charm would win today's world, or Nixon's brain would solve our problems. Share your thoughts. We read every single one, and we can't wait to hear what you say. Before we go, let's leave you with a spark. Kennedy once said, "We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." Nixon countered with, "Always give your best, never get discouraged, never be petty." Both pushed us to be bigger, better. So, what's your next step? Maybe it's learning more English, chasing a dream, or tackling something tough. Whatever it is, take a page from these guys, aim high, keep going, and make your mark. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. You've learned new words, heard incredible stories, and maybe even picked a side. Keep practicing, keep dreaming, and we'll see you in the next video for another adventure. Until then, stay curious and keep shining.